What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet. Today I'm here to bring you a brand new Skyrim build, a powerful warrior cat known by his arena grand champion name, the Golden Lion. But this build isn't seeking glory, fame, or riches, he is simply seeking a true challenge. The Golden Lion walks the path of the warrior and rebellious exiles, following the Khajiiti deity known as Boethra. This is the Khajiit's version of Boethiah, and as a result this build has some really cool role-playing themes that make it far different to a typical champion of Boethiah type character. The Golden Lion fights at unnatural speeds, spurred on by a desire to defeat increasingly mighty foes while wielding Boethiah's daedric artifact, Goldbrand. This golden katana is said to be forged in the flames of dragons from Atmora, and speaking of flames, your sword won't just be setting foes it strikes on fire, it can seemingly breathe fire itself, unleashing flames in a style similar to the energy blasts of the Bloodskull blade. Wielding this one-handed blade in two hands means you rapidly drown enemies in fire, and honestly the fast-paced nature alongside the aesthetic and story we've come up with make this build incredibly fun to play. I can't stress enough that you do not want to miss the role-playing section for this one. It's vital you see it, and timestamps are in the description in case you want to go back to it. But before we get into the mods and character setup, I want to tell you that we've been fortunate enough to have ExpressVPN sponsor this build. ExpressVPN is a virtual private network service that masks your activity online and helps protect your identity and information. Their trusted server technology means it's physically impossible for any of ExpressVPN servers to store logs of any users. It's incredibly easy to set up and use. Simply fire up the app and connect with just one click. One of my favorite things about it is how easy it makes it to change your location when streaming movies and shows. Netflix always seems to be changing what's available in each country, so I use ExpressVPN to change my location from Australia to the US, the UK, or wherever else I need to, so that I can watch the things I want that aren't available in my country. Recently I used ExpressVPN to set my location so I could rewatch some nostalgic films from my childhood like The Terminator and Troy. If you're in the US, you can also switch your location to view things you've been restricted from accessing, like Studio Ghibli films including Spirited Away and Howl's Moving Castle, as well as all-time classics like American Psycho. You can do this to get the most from other streaming services too. Find out how you can get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description box below, expressvpn.com/FudgeMuppet. Now let's talk about the mods this build uses. We've got the alternate start mod, which you all know about, but you'll also want the New Beginnings Live Another Life extension so that you can pick the option we go with, explained at the start of the role-playing section. We've also got Morningstar minimalistic races and Valkyrie minimalistic perks to enhance the passive bonuses and playstyle of the Golden Lion without drowning him in unneeded complexity. There's also the Andromeda Standing Stones mod, which we always love to use, as well as the classic classes and birth signs mod, which adds some more interesting buffs to begin your adventure with. We also have Winter Sun Faiths of Skyrim to gain benefit from following the path of Boethiah, who will be roleplaying to be the Khajiiti version of this daedric prince, Boethra. There's artifacts, the Tournament of the 10 Bloods, which allows us to get Boethiah's artifact, the flaming gold katana known as Goldbrand. We also have a Midian-born Book of Silence, simply to change the aesthetic of Ebony and the Ebony Mail artifact. You'll want to choose to have them both as being gold trimmed in appearance. Zim's immersive artifacts will also be used to change the effects of Ebony Mail in a lore-friendly way, making it more in line with what Ebony Mail did in the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. More on that in the gear section. Very importantly, we also have the combat gameplay overhaul. This adds rolls and other features to make things feel more lively, but the key takeaway with this is that you can change the way you grip your weapon. You can take a one-handed weapon, hold it in two hands, and swing it faster, and that's exactly what we do. In the mod configuration menu, turn off Skill Matches Grip, so that the effectiveness is still based on the one-handed skill. This is important for this build as it just so happens that following Boethiah increases one-handed damage, and we also just prefer the look of the katana being used in this rapid swordsman style. As a final note, feel free to add more challenges and adversity by using extra mods related to more enemy types, such as centaurs and minotaurs from the Mihail Monsters and Animals mods. Really anything like that. Now for the character setup. As a Khajiit, the Golden Lion will do 20 points of claw damage, with claw power attacks doing bonus damage equal to 25% of stamina. You can also use Night Eye at will to have night vision for 60 seconds. Most importantly, you'll be getting 10% faster movement speed from the Feline Agility passive, which fits really well with a warrior already swinging a blade at blinding speeds. As for the class we pick with our class and birth signs mod, we actually go with Rogue. This is a combat specialization class that we have chosen for its unique ability called Elan. This increases one-handed damage by 20%, perfect for making the Golden Lion deadlier than ever. For roleplaying, we choose to see the Rogue class as symbolic for this build being a rebellious lone traveler, as opposed to its intention as some kind of dashing, thieving rogue in the night. You also get boosts to 6 major skills: block, one-handed, illusion, alchemy, light armor, and speech. As you'll find out, this build only uses 3 skills, diving deep in each, but block and one-handed are 2 of those skills, so this class still hits the main focus well enough. You also gain a secondary skill, being hand-to-hand, which grants plus 10 to unarmed combat damage, not bad on top of the 20 given by being a Khajiit. Overall, it just makes the Golden Lion feel like a true beast, even if you take his gear away from him. For the birth sign, you don't have to pick one if you think it's too overpowered to use alongside a standing stone, but personally we'd rather have a character with more power and then just turn up the difficulty or add mods to make things more challenging if we need to. Fitting for a follower of Boethra, the warrior of the East and West, we're going with the warrior birth sign. This simply makes you deal 20% more damage with weapons. For a standing stone, we've actually gone with the shadow stone. We don't pick this for the stealth benefit, we want this to be quick in a fight, and the blur passive helps with that by granting 20% faster movement speed in combat. On top of the natural Khajiit movement speed, we're going to be one fast cat. There's also an unlockable power called Shadow Step, letting you spend 50 points of stamina to dash to a nearby target within 75 feet. Conveniently, the Shadow Stone can be found close to our alternate start beginning location, near Riften. The Golden Lion will have a stat spread of purely health and stamina based on a 2-to-1 investment respectively. That's 2/3 health, 1/3 stamina. As you'd expect, health is a necessity for any aspiring combatant who cannot rely on armor alone to save them. A warrior must be tough. Stamina will be useful for staying agile, being able to sprint, roll, and obviously dish out lots of power attacks. With our perks, it also increases damage output, but we definitely won't be needing any more stamina than that. As for our faith, the Golden Lion follows the Khajiiti aspect of Boethiah, Boethra. Boethra isn't an option in the Winter Sun Faiths mod, so we choose Boethiah instead. You'll want to go to the mod configuration menu and remove quest and race requirements for worship. This way you'll have a better role-playing experience, as you can just go straight to the shrine and select her as your deity. The exact shrine you'll want to select is found below the main statue by the stairs. But do know that the Golden Lion does not worship Boethra in the traditional sense. Ancient Khajiit didn't see traditional prayer to Boethra as necessary, and would instead honor her by walking the path and only hiding in order to pounce. This build will not be hiding though, but he will be walking the path, seeing Boethra as a role model. You will want to roleplay that your prayer is actually more like meditating on Boethra's teachings. Essentially, you want to roleplay that there's not some big worship angle. Pray or meditate to gain favor. The more favor you have, the more damage you'll deal when fighting only one opponent, which fits perfectly with our build's roleplaying section on honorable battle and wanting to prove himself against any single challenger or foe. You will also raise your favor by slaying those who stand in your way. Her shrine blessing also fits nicely, granting 10% more one-handed effectiveness. As a devotee, when your favor hits 100, you get an invisibility sneak attack based power, but the Golden Lion will not care for this, especially as it costs favor to use, which is better used for stacking damage. And now for the backstory. 26 years ago in the northern Khajiiti kingdom of Anaquina, the boy who would become the Golden Lion was born under the moons when Massa was waxing and Secunda was full, giving him the resulting form of a Cathay. This was unlike his father, who was a Parma, Khajiit that resembled giant humanoid tigers, and his mother, a Sench, a quadruped Khajiit of powerful stature. They lived together in the ancient city of Orcrest, sat atop a plateau which overlooked the Scar, a vast desert of Elsewhere's north. This city is renowned for its many rogues and thieves, and his father was employed as local muscle sent to collect debts. He was a bit of a bruiser, and one day he intimidated the wrong people, and his life ended on the tip of a Thalmor sword. After this tragedy for the family, his mother took him into the wilds of the Scar, fearing the lifestyle her son may lead if they were to remain in the city. They lived as nomads like the ancient Khajiit did. The Golden Lion grew up with his mother, learning of the old Khajiit Khajiiti gods, ancient tales of a time before Riddlethar. His favourite were those of Boethra, a warrior of the east and west. Boethiah was once exiled by Atmora for her rebellious nature, and it is then she walked the many paths before returning to the fold. She fought the Demon King Molag to a draw, she fought Noctra as well, and she was even the one who pried the first of Magrus's eyes. The young boy was enthralled with these stories, and thought of himself and his mother as walking the many paths, modelling himself and his actions after Boethra. Throughout his childhood into adulthood, they would hunt all manner of beasts together, terror birds, antelope, harpies, and whatever else they could eat or harvest ingredients from to sell to wealthy alchemists. His mother would use her gifts to pounce and latch onto prey like cats of the wild, while the Golden Lion would finesse swords, daggers, and spears to ensure the final kill or continue the fight if it were a foe of great constitution. In his 15th year of this world, they came upon a terror bird, a usual prey with which they killed with ease. However, this time another beast had its eyes set on the same prey. An enormous griffin launched a surprise attack as they began stripping their kill. His mother was struck in the belly with gnashing claws, yet she fought on, tearing at its wing, forcing it to stay grounded so her son could strike. A grueling fight endured for a few minutes before the Golden Lion struck his sword underneath its head, puncturing soft flesh and pushing the tip of his blade into its brain. They were triumphant, but the victory was bittersweet. His mother's wounds were fatal, and she would not last the night. Under the moons and stars, Kanathi guided her soul to the afterlife, and the Golden Lion was left alone to bury his dear mother atop a hill with a small stone cairn, a traditional burial. Unwilling to seek a normal life in the cities, he followed the path of Boethra, that of an exile, and sought great challenges so that he may prove himself to be the best warrior he can be. He travelled northwest into the lands of Clovia, fighting off bandits looking to take advantage of a lone traveller. It was through these fights he learnt that he preferred the blade above all, and he would seek mastery over it. For 3 summers and 3 winters he found challenges in the form of Fighters Guild mercenaries, folk heroes, and knights of Skingrad and Kvatch, but it soon became clear that this was a realm of pampered nobles and gold seekers, not the powerful warriors of old who stopped an empire in its tracks. At age 18 he found himself in Anvil, facing his greatest challenge yet, a dervish swordmaster of Rihard. They clashed in a symphony of swords, a daring battle that looked as if the dervish would play the final note. That is until a mouse scurried underneath him, causing him to lose his proper footing. With the opportunity presented, the Golden Lion struck at his throat, which poured blood like a split sack of wine. The swordmaster fell to the floor as onlookers watched the Khajiit with awe. However, the lion himself was frustrated. He knew deep down that he had only won by sheer luck, and to win only by luck or cheating only cheats himself of knowing his true potential. It was here that a noble approached him, a noble who sponsors gladiators in the Imperial City arena. Eager to prove himself that he is a great swordsman, he accepted the offer and became an arena combatant. It was only after 2 short years that he was counted among the champions. The katana became his sword of choice, and it was the weapon he chose when he challenged the grand champion of the time, the Dark Scion. He was a dark elf named Sulan Dress, known to be wicked quick with his ebony battle axe. Sulan too was a Boethiah devotee, which made the fight all the more special for the lion. They met in the sands of the arena, encircled by the roaring crowds. Sulan was quick, but the lion was quicker. In a single draw of his blade, Sulan's guts plonked to the ground. The announcer entered and raised his arm, declaring him the new grand champion. He whispered into his ear, "What's your new name?" The victor did not respond, so the announcer gave him a name. He took one look at the Khajiit's golden mane and said, "The Golden Lion." The crowds cheered the name as he left the arena in victory. Their praise fell on deaf ears as he did not care for admiration. All that mattered is that he had proved his skills to himself. The Golden Lion would never be seen here again. He left without his prize of gold, left without a goodbye. He had faced the greatest challenges to be had in this city, so there was no reason to remain. Cities made him feel claustrophobic anyways, so he was happy to be back on the trail. He sought the lands of the Dark Elves. Perhaps among them he would find more challenges. Some fools tried to enslave him. They failed. He faced great warriors of House Dress, Sadras, and Redoran, but they all fell before him. The warriors of House Redoran were the greatest among the Dunmer, but still the Golden Lion sought more, so he looked west to Skyrim, supposedly a land of barbarians and great warriors who even claimed they were created by Kanathi on top of some mountain and that she was married to Lorkhaj. Strange stories to be sure, but the Golden Lion takes the path into the Rift to find the truth of it. This is where your journey as the Golden Lion begins, an exciting path that will lead to many great challenges to overcome through mastery of the blade. The Golden Lion enters the lands of Skyrim with the mod option of being a traveling mercenary coming from southern Morrowind. The Golden Lion is far from elsewhere, roaming Skyrim like a Ronin. He'll never have a master, only greater challenges, for even Boethra is seen as more of a role model and less of an entity to be worshipped by groveling in a temple. This character is far from your typical daedra worshipping build, being more introspective in nature than those who constantly turn outwards in prayer, seeking help from external forces. The Golden Lion will prove his worth as a skilled warrior to himself, not others, through the pursuit of new and dangerous challenges, most preferably singular opponents who he can have an honorable and fair fight with. He will slay anyone that gets in his way, but overall he's not a fan of unworthy opponents. If he knows he'll instantly slice someone into pieces, it's not really worth his effort, as he considers the battle beneath him. He seeks the worthy foe, and will never stealthily kill anyone. The Golden Lion brings himself to battle out in the open. He wants his opponent to see him coming, fighting him in a duel, in the sense that he doesn't ambush them or use surprise to get any unfair advantage. He has no fears, he uses no deception, and will be frustrated if he wins through any means other than his raw skill. Having luck or someone else interfere will have him feeling like he cheated the victory. As a result, don't expect him to be fond of having companions come along on his journey. He prefers to be alone, to travel by himself, and to stay away from the crowds. Even as an arena champion, he always felt uncomfortable in the city surrounded by people. You'll want to spend the minimum amount of time needed in cities to do what you have to and then leave. When looking at role-playing for factions and quests, you'll want to seek out anything that involves surmounting tough difficulties and proving to the Golden Lion that he can defeat any target in battle. You can do the main story, as killing dragons as well as Alduin will further prove his mastery of battle. As far as being the Dragonborn goes, he will associate his Dragonborn nature with Alkosh, the Khajiiti version of Akatosh, and see it as a blessing, but he will not care for the identity of it at all, nor for the Dragon Shout abilities. It's just something that has happened to him on his path, and he's going along with it, especially because it allows him to truly kill dragons after defeating them in open and fair combat. He will also do the Dragonborn DLC, eager for the challenge of defeating Miraak, another powerful Dragonborn. He will allow himself to use Dragon Shouts in that battle, as Miraak also possesses and uses this gift. He'll also sign up with the Dawnguard to take down the vampires and defeat Harkon, one of the most intimidating opponents he will ever meet. However, do keep in mind that the Golden Lion does not care for community. He would never sign up with large groups for the kinship and teamwork aspect of things. He's really only with the Dawnguard to kill vampires and Harkon, and isn't fond of hunting in a pack. This theme bleeds into other decisions too. For example, he won't join the companions as he doesn't care for their focus on creating an atmosphere of camaraderie, and if he did join, he definitely wouldn't be fond of being forced to be a werewolf either. Caring little for community, he also won't want to join any army for the Civil War. Instead of fighting one great opponent, it's just legions of farmhands turned soldiers dying in mounds amongst each other. There's no mighty foe at the end of the road, and his heart isn't in it ideologically. If you must do the Civil War, the Stormcloaks would be the way to go, as it more closely aligns with Boethra's rebellious nature. A perfect example of something he does like is being approached by the Ebony Warrior to battle. He'll love that it's up on a mountain with no crowd watching and no one to help, and he will approach the fight with great ferocity and unwavering focus. He'll also enjoy fighting Karstag in the Dragonborn DLC. Speaking of which, he will have no moral issues getting the Black Books. He has an ancient Khajiiti perspective on the Daedric princes, and doesn't see Atmora, who he calls Hermora, as a Daedra to be terrified of and stay away from. realm. Azura is said to frequent Atmora's realm, learning from his knowledge, and as the most important deity in the Khajiiti pantheon, she will be loved and respected by the Golden Lion. He would do her quest and get Azura's star, never betraying the mother of all Khajiit. Hircine's quest can also be done, and the Golden Lion would definitely see killing Sinding as the challenge. The build will not serve the dark spirits like Nocturnal, who went against Azura, Namira, who is considered a corrupting spirit, nor Vaemina, who haunts Khajiit's dreams. You'll help Arandur in the Waking Nightmare quest, and simply kill Yola in the Namira quest as soon as you can. Now, of course, you'll also be doing Boethiah's quest, but we're going to ignore the whole use, stealth, and assassination element. You'll still get the same reward regardless, the Ebony Mail. But more importantly, you'll also be honored to compete in her Tournament of the 10 Bloods, which will allow you to get your hands on Goldbrand. To begin the quest, you'll need to go to the College of Winterhold and read the story of Lyrisius book, which can be found in the Arcanium. Just show off that you're dragonborn to gain entry, no need for spellcasting. One cool daedric quest you could do is Kyan's Sacred Trials, which involves hunting down ethereal beasts. Also remember, this character will not care or be tempted by promises of money or status. He is walking the path of Boethra, seeking something intangible and much deeper. Now for the skills and perks. The skill set of the Golden Lion is rather narrow, but with specialization comes depth, and this ferocious warrior would see investing his time in anything else as a huge opportunity cost. Why learn to make potions or fire a bow when that time could be used to make him better at using his weapon and armor as an extension of his body? The Golden Lion will invest in the one-handed skill to slay any opponent he desires. Block, as a swordsman needs proficient defense if he is to protect himself and parry incoming strikes, and heavy armor to stay maneuverable while being protected. This is the perfect trinity for this build, as it really reflects his attitude towards life. Harnessing recreational skills or utility talents on the side is a waste of time. Each and every minute, every second possible is fully devoted to the way of the undefeatable lone warrior and to becoming one with the nature of Boethra. This build obviously doesn't use spells, but will also avoid dragon shouts most of the time. He wants to focus on winning as a pure warrior, and will stay away from utilizing a godly gift that his opponents don't have access to, and he didn't even earn. However, you'll still be using your dragon shouts as required to progress in the main story, and as I said, also against Miraak. Just don't go Fusrodaring a worthy foe off a cliff after they've assumed their battle stance awaiting your approach. Now let's go through the perks, but do keep in mind I'm not going to discuss every single one in great detail because a lot of them are just simple stat increases, but I'll give you the full list on screen and then go over the most important ones that help make this build really work. From the one-handed perk tree, we've got one-handed mastery 5 out of 5, overpowering assault, execute, victory rush, disciplined fighter, furious strength, valorous charge, crater maker, and disarming slash. One of the most powerful perks here is Furious Strength, granting the Golden Lion's power attacks 0.1% more damage per point of stamina. It also unlocks decapitations, which is always fun, and with our 2-to-1 stat split of health and stamina, we're going to have plenty of power attack damage potential. Also of note is Victory Rush, a sensational perk that keeps our stamina high. You'll need to have 100 in the one-handed skill to get it, but once you do, you'll be replenishing 100 points of stamina every time you kill an opponent with a one-handed weapon. This is one of the reasons we didn't want to go too heavy on the stamina investment, as we constantly top it up with this perk. From the block skill, we're going to be choosing Block Mastery 5 out of 5, Weapon Block, Unwavering Defense, Poke the Dragon, and Stoneheart. Weapon Block is an absolute essential here, as it makes blocking with weapons 25% more effective. Obviously, this build isn't using a shield, so this is very helpful. The Stoneheart perk also ensures the Golden Lion can truly hold an unwavering stance. After getting 100 in your block skill and unlocking this perk, the Golden Lion won't be able to be staggered by power attacks or bashes while blocking. You will truly feel immovable. The Heavy Armor skill tree has Heavy Armor Mastery 5 out of 5, Cushioned 2 out of 2 for no fall damage, Battle Fatigue, Off Balance, Reap the Whirlwind, Face of the Mountain, Heavy Armor Fit, Face of Death, Heavy Armor Training, Tower of Strength, Elemental Defense, and Glancing Blows. Face of Death is crucial for making sure all your heavy armor perks that say they require you to wear all heavy armor pieces don't actually need you to wear the helmet. We want to see the exposed mane and predator gaze of our build, so no helmet is the best from a pure aesthetic perspective. In addition, this perk also increases the armor rating of your other heavy armor pieces by 20% when not wearing a helmet. Another great heavy armor perk of note is called Off Balance. This represents the agile nature of the Golden Lion, in the sense that he moves his body and angles himself so precisely and with speed that opponents may only just glance him and lose their balance as a result. So with this perk, taking an incoming hit has a 10% chance to stagger the attacker. This gets taken even further by the skill level 100 perk, Face of the Mountain, but this one relates specifically to power attacks and bashes. Either of these being inflicted upon you will always cause the attacker to be staggered, and there's a 25% chance they'll even be knocked down. This is one sturdy and tactically maneuvering Khajiit. By now you're probably wanting to know about this amazing sword and the rest of the gear the Golden Lion brings to battle. Then we'll bring it all together for the playstyle. So first and foremost we have Goldbrand. This is a seriously powerful weapon. With our endgame setup described so far, our sword had 190 damage on it, which perfectly sums up why smithing and enchanting investment is simply not needed, outside of the fact that it doesn't really fit the role-playing either. Goldbrand burns the target for 30 points, and if you power attack with it, you'll shoot out blasts of fire. The fire spews out in a directional manner based on the way you power attack, so consider using sideways attacks if you're trying to hit groups of enemies. These extra fire blasts burn the target for 15 points and staggers enemies. To keep this sword charged, there's a few methods. Firstly, we will be getting Azura's Star, which you can use as a soul gem. Just remember, only white souls will work. Simply keep a generic soul trap or fiery soul trap sword you find in your inventory, and when Goldbrand's charge is low, use it to soul trap a target, kill them, and then use the star to recharge Goldbrand. Alternatively, you can go and buy soul gems from vendors easily. This build is a lone wanderer and doesn't really spend money on anything at all, especially with no crafting skills, so you'll be saving heaps of coin throughout your playthrough. There's no spells, just gear which you never have to purchase. Soul gems are easy to buy, and for roleplaying you'd probably want to purchase them in big batches to avoid going into cities too frequently. We've then got the ebony mail and ebony gauntlets and boots. All of this will have its aesthetic changed to a gold trimmed style via the Book of Silence mod, making it look similar to how it was in previous Elder Scrolls games. In similar fashion, Zim's Immersive Artifacts mod makes the ebony mail similar in effect to Morrowind. Instead of the shadowy poison cloak effect, which is cool but doesn't really suit this build, ebony mail will wrap the Golden Lion in a fire shield in combat that increases fire resistance and armor rating by 70 points. It still muffles movement, not that we need it to. For the ebony gauntlets and boots, using standard pieces you find is fine, but if you can find gauntlets with a fortify one-handed enchantment and maybe resist fire for the boots, which is also on theme, it would only be of benefit. Same goes for jewelry. It's not needed, but using an enchanted ring or necklace you find that increases damage or grants magic resistance is a great idea if you're looking to take things to that next level. Finally, we arrive at the playstyle, which you should be super familiar with just by watching the video this far. This is One Fast Cat, and you'll be using the full extent of the combat overhaul with plenty of rolls as you leap around the battlefield, slicing enemies into tiny defeated chunks. Remember that you'll enter combat in view of your opponents, avoiding any kind of ambush tactics. We recommend entering with a power attack of sorts to immediately emit a blast of fire from your gold katana to deal area damage to surrounding foes. The Golden Lion may prefer to take enemies on one at a time, but most bandits won't agree to that, will they? Using a sprinting power attack will see you momentarily switch your one-handed blade, which will be held in both hands using the overhaul, into one hand, which is incredibly cool and makes fighting feel really dynamic. With our character setup, we're going to have rapid movement speed, and we'll use this to our advantage as much as possible, slicing through enemy forces, but also moving out of the way by the time they try to strike back, before refocusing on weak points with new attack angles. Your speed and dexterity is only furthered by the fact that holding a one-handed weapon with both hands increases swing speed, so it's not only your legs that will be moving fast. Don't feel pressured to power attack non-stop, as normal strikes will have pretty insane damage per second by themselves. You'll want to mix it up and make sure you tactically use those fire blasts when needed. Do note that it puts fire on the floor too, and you can step in it easily by accident and catch fire, but because of your super high fire resistance, you'll you'll hardly feel a thing, so don't worry too much. If anything, it just makes you look much scarier. Another thing to note is that this is an extremely close quarters build, not a ranged build, so avoid staying back and using the fire blasts too repetitively. Consider it more of an extra heat of the moment type thing, where the Golden Lion rips a power attack straight through a marauder's neck, taking their head clean off, and a beam of fire rips through, cauterizing the wound and setting alight the enemies running in from the back to join in. We also recommend blocking when necessary and staggering foes with fire and heavy armor perks as a means of crowd control while you focus on killing one enemy at a time. Besides role-playing, slaying each enemy one at a time instead of spreading damage around evenly also helps to restore that 100 points of stamina via the Victory Rush perk to unleash more power attacks if desired. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of this Skyrim build, the Golden Lion. Thank you so much for watching, we really hope you enjoyed it, and if you want more like this, be sure to like the video and let us know in the comment section. Timestamps, mod links, and social media pages are linked in the description below if you're interested. My name is Michael, thanks again for tuning into FudgeMuppet, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.